They're with Matim. I'm with the north of the war. In today's video, we are going to talk about President Zelensky's ill-fated visit to the United States and the meeting he had with President Trump and Vice President J.D. Vance. Well, I'll leave the link here for now. That's all anyone is talking about. What happened was the following. What do we notice first? The events that reveal a certain lack of preparation. Why? Because this matter cannot be addressed in front of the cameras.
Assunto não pode ser tratado em frente às câmeras. Esse assunto precisa ser tratado primeiro pelos assessores dele, do presidente, do vice-presidente, acertado, e depois de que
The vice president agreed, and after a mutual agreement is reached, then it is taken to the decision makers so they can make the statements. Zelensky showed a lot of unpreparedness. He had already been showing it in other meetings. But what happens? In the first 2 years of the war, the press gave Zelensky a lot of leeway. So I don't know if you remember, there was that case of, I need ammunition, not a ride. They kept boosting Zelensky. So he thought he was really all-powerful. But he met someone with an ego the size of the moon, which is Donald Trump. And the worst thing you can do with Trump is to confront him in public. You can even do this in private. He will hold grudges. That's Trump's profile. But it will be less bad. The way it was presented, it was disastrous. Zelensky was treated like a schoolboy in front of teachers. It was something dreadful what happened there. He was scorned. This already shows the direction the war will take. Because if the United States wasn't going to give money, after this, they definitely won't. Now there will be a meeting in Europe in solidarity and absence. Look, I find it hard for this to result in anything. Why? We have a Europe in a pre-bankruptcy situation. If it fully plunges into the war, it risks entering total bankruptcy and facing a nuclear strike. The future of countries like Germany and the Baltic states, if things continue, is a nuclear strike. If it escalates to the point where Russia loses control, they will resort to nuclear weapons. I have no doubt about that. So I see it this way. I think Trump is pragmatic in this regard, and he is doing what he thinks needs to be done. He will end this war, he will cut the funding. What Zelensky will do next, I don't know. I've already told you that I always use the example of the Vietnam War. When they cut the funding to Vietnam, the war ended. The North resolved it. The balance swept over the South Vietnamese troops, which is what will end up happening in Ukraine if things continue this way now. Look, folks, I always say the following, both for one side and the other. Be careful when you beat the drum for the United States, saying they did well in this or that, because what the United States is doing with Ukraine today, they will do with Brazil sooner or later. There are some leaders here in Brazil who think it's cute to go to the United States, become friends with Trump, etc. Oh, do this, do that, in Brazil. We forget that tomorrow the government changes between the Democrat and what they did with Zelensky, they will do with some Brazilians. This is inevitably going to happen. I already said, a little over a year ago, I said they would do with Zelensky what they did with Thieu in South Vietnam. Thieu, for those who don't know, was the last president of South Vietnam, the man who was left holding the hot potato by the United States, who blatantly abandoned him. Zelensky's situation is much worse. What happened there was shameful. It was shameful. Pence and Trump humiliated Zelensky. It was a disgrace. And Zelensky revealed himself to be extremely unprepared, because a true leader must be very careful with what happens in public. I mean, in reality, what we have nowadays is a demonstration that international politics has turned into a neighborhood quarrel. A complete mess, indeed. And the ones who will pay the price for all this are the Ukrainian people. Ukrainians have nowhere else to run. The United States were the ones really holding the line. Now what's left is Germany, maybe something from the United Kingdom and France. But I doubt that these countries will want to bet more on a war that is already lost. It is irretrievably lost. I don't know what more can be bet on this. They might do something, I believe that's what they'll do, to save face, show solidarity with the Ukrainians, maybe call an ambassador or two, but it won't make any difference. That won't change the situation on the battlefield. Zelensky's last chance was this one. His last chance was this, and he showed a lot of unpreparedness and ignorance, especially regarding Trump's personality. Trump is the kind of person you can't confront in public. His personality leans in that direction. And one thing that is also evident, you should observe closely, I'll provide the link to that interview, is that J.D. Vance, as I've mentioned several times, is a character who is gaining prominence. I think he is very different from Trump's other vice president, who is Mike Pence. I believe J.D. Vance will have a very strong role and is a serious candidate for Trump's association. I've always said this, keep an eye on this guy, because he is young, has his whole life ahead of him at the moment, so I think he has a lot of future. I don't know. Politics is a box of surprises. We don't know what will come tomorrow. But the position, the intensity with which he criticized Zelensky, shows that this man wants a leading role. He doesn't just want to be a vice president, no. He will have a leading role in place of Trump. And what Trump wants most these days is people to echo his wishes, his political desires. So we will have interesting days ahead. This is true. It is very sad what is happening with Ukraine. The country is now heading towards debacle. After the military debacle, there will be an economic debacle. In fact, Ukraine will become a Haiti in Europe. Ukraine is heading towards that. It will become a Haiti in Europe. So all these deaths, all this suffering of the people was in vain. What will happen now is advancement. People will take resources from the country. Reconstruction packages will advance, which will demand a lot of money. The vultures are already eyeing. Turkey is already showing its claws too. I believe that Turkey, Germany, France, the United States, of course China, many countries will take advantage of this and will get involved in the reconstruction packages for Ukraine. The ones who will really pay the price are the Ukrainian people. A video was released yesterday on Arte da Guerra, which is an analysis, a piece from the Washington Post, where they predict that Ukraine will probably have only 15 million inhabitants by 20,100. So it is truly a very sad situation happening in Ukraine. The end for Zelensky is uncertain. I think today marked the end of his government. The mechanism is already over. I believe that, no matter how much solidarity Europe lends him, both his power cycle and the opposition will see that this guy is not capable of governing, lacks maturity, and does not have the statesmanship to deal with other politicians on the international scene. He only worked as long as he was covered. The Democratic Party, Biden was completely in favor of him. The press was very supportive, but now it can no longer be hidden. So Zelensky's future is quite uncertain. We are going to do a live today to talk about this. We will discuss the repercussions around the world. But write what you think will happen to Zelensky. It's very important to know your opinion, to know what you think will happen to Vladimir Zelensky. I also want to take the opportunity to recommend to you folks the channel of Commander Robinson Farinazzo from the channel Arte da Guerra. I'll leave the link here in the description. Because it is a professional channel. It's a channel made by the CFN military, where you will have the opportunity to engage with the doctrines of the Marine Corps and operational methods. This was the dream I had as a kid, to have access to this. We could only access it through books and magazines, but now you have the chance to see the real classes for CFN personnel. So subscribe. I am already subscribed to the channel. Subscribe, share. I activated the notification bell so I don't miss its releases. We'll be back shortly in our live talking about Zelensky, always with responsibility and commitment. And already in Brazil, folks. See you later.
Bom, gente, na nossa lista de desejos que se encontra aqui na descrição do
Well, folks, in our wish list found in the video description, you'll find many books about the war in Ukraine. And I remind you that books delivered by Amazon's delivery system arrive quite quickly. But if you're from the generation that prefers a Kindle book, you can download it instantly. The prices are very good. The topics are quite up to date, and they will give you a very clear picture of what's happening in the war in Ukraine. And I remind you that every time you buy books and other items on Amazon, you are supporting the Arte da Guerra channel.
Na Amazon, vocês estão ajudando o canal Arte da Guerra.